Good afternoon. I don't know if you accessed the previous attempt of doing this video or not, but it was hilarious because somehow I was getting an, another voice over mine. I could hardly hear mine. So I think I successfully deleted it so you couldn't get it. I have thoroughly been enjoying our interaction on discussion boards. Now, I need to clarify a statement by Jordan that I probably am dancing in my office. Now, I was raised in a pretty strict environment, so I don't dance. Well, I won't talk about my clumsiness, and I won't talk about the piles of stuff on my floor that would hinder my dancing in my office. But you get the idea. Hey, good discussions, and I really appreciate the teachable spirit that you are exhibiting as you do that. Through my years of life and being a pastor and a teacher, I've sometimes been misunderstood for what I said. Sometimes it was the tone in which I said it, but sometimes people misunderstood my words. Like, I don't always use a word identically. I refer to my wife as my sweetheart, but I also refer to my daughter as my other sweetheart. Now, there are obviously two different distinct relationships, even though it's the same word. The same happens within the writers of Scripture. Words are not used identically. I've also been misunderstood because somebody had some baggage that they brought to the conversation. I remember a pastoral candidate in our church when I was in junior high who said something about some idea evolving over the years. As soon as he said the word evolve, he was no longer a candidate. Oh, yeah, they went through the process, but his use of a word that stirred a fire ended his consideration by the church leadership. Sometimes it is what someone else has said about me to the person who is now talking to me. Oh, he's hard to get along with. He doesn't listen, or whatever it happens to be. And so the person comes with that prejudice as they approach our conversation. Having said all that, I think it's important, as I indicated last week, to consider carefully how we approach uh, listening to and reading issues. I am convinced that both uh, Woodstra and Toussaint are thoroughly committed to the five solas: solely Scripture, sola by faith, salvation solely by grace, salvation solely through Christ, and while all of life ought to be lived to the glory of God. But they do come to different conclusions, and we need to respect that. I want you to understand that I am thoroughly a dispensationalist. I am that by conviction. I also want you to know that I have numerous books in my library and I have numerous friends around the world with whom I do not agree 100% on every theological issue. But that doesn't mean I can't learn from them. The roots of Reformed theology go back to Martin Luther and the Reformation, and the focus of that day was on soteriology. They needed to have clarity on what the Scripture taught related to soteriology and related topics. In the 50s and 60s, the matter of eschatology became a high primary focus. Hundreds of churches across the nation had what they called prophecy conferences. Sometimes they would last an entire week. And in those, they would search the scriptures related to those various topics. Today, the matter of last days is interesting, but honestly, as someone mentioned in their post, the need for today, in my opinion, is for more men and women who are godly, who are living Christ honoring lives, day in and day out, 24/7, 365. And so it's been years since I preached a specifically focused eschatological sermon. Oh, sure, when you come across certain texts in the epistles as you preach verse by verse or paragraph by paragraph through a book, there will be some eschatological uh, truth that comes out, but it has not been my primary focus. But I think it's important for us to think through clearly, how do we interpret Scripture? The issue that concerns me is a non-literal approach. When we do not take words in their normal sense, we are distorting what the author of Scripture wrote. When we do not take those words in the context both of the sentence, the paragraph, the book, and the situation in which the original writer was addressing something, we are misinterpreting. I have not participated in the discussion because I wanted you to wrestle with those truths, because I want you to come to strong biblical conviction, to pray, to study, to seek the Scriptures, and allow Him to speak to you pointedly. These are important issues, and we need to each continue to demonstrate a teachable spirit that allows God to speak to us and through us. As you have completed week 6 and now are coming close to the completing week 7, I just want to encourage you to continue to work hard and diligently the rest of your life to build a strong theological foundation for biblical interpretation. Let your teaching, your preaching, your writing rise out of Scripture, not your preaching imposed or your teaching imposed or your writing imposed on what you want Scripture to say. Those are two distinctly different approaches. I am very concerned that just as if you heard me call my daughter my sweetheart, that you do not interpret that as I have an identical relationship with her as I do with my wife. I don't want you to allow your baggage, emotional, historical, theological, whatever that is, to distort what I say. Likewise, we need to come to the Scripture with a passion to listen to the Spirit of God and allow Him to teach us. God bless you. I have really enjoyed working through these issues with you in this class, and I look forward to grading your papers in the next few days. God bless.